Miguel?
Okay. Ashley, ready when you are.
Okay, it takes a second. 1 second. Welcome, everybody. Just want to make sure we're live on YouTube and also live on Zoom. Guess we're not live on YouTube on Zoom. Hold on, what's happening? It's not working. Hold on. Okay. All right. Okay, guys, sorry, look. So I always have to make a joke, and like the people in the Pentagon know that I like to make these jokes. When you're working with bigwigs, sometimes they're gonna put us behind schedule because like they have all these important things, they're like helping keep our sailors safe, our Marines safe, and saving the world. So if we're late, blame them, make some calls to the Pentagon. But welcome everybody. We're gonna get started, but I want you guys to stay after the event because we did not have time to play the Loteria video, but we wanna show you guys all of what was sent in. So stay tuned for a wonderful program. And Miguel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ashley. Good morning or afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this year's Navsea National Hispanic Heritage Observance event. My name is Miguel Carrillo, and I work for Naval Surface Warfare Center in Corona, California. Each year, National Hispanic Heritage Month is celebrated from September 15th to October 15th, a month-long celebration to recognize the achievements and contributions of Hispanic Americans across our diverse Navsea workforce. The theme of today's event is Esperanza, a celebration of Hispanic heritage and hope. A celebration of the contributions of the Hispanic military and civilian personnel that make up the force behind the fleet of the Navsea family. This year's event is brought to you by the collaborative efforts of the Hispanic Employee Resource Group across the 10 Navsea Warfare Centers, Navsea headquarters, and with support from Naval X. In today's celebration, you will listen to some of your Hispanic coworkers share a story on a word that has had an impact on both their personal and professional lives. You will also hear a message from our keynote speaker, Mr. Elvis Acosta, who has graciously accepted our invitation today. At the conclusion of this event, we will share the Loteria card submitted by the Navsea workforce, which highlights the service, talent, and contributions made by Hispanics to the U.S. Navy. I want to thank each and every one of you who took the time to contribute to this event. I can't wait to get this started, so let's kick off this event with the opening remarks by our Navsea leadership and special guests, Commander of Navsea, Admiral Galinas, and Executive Director of Navsea, Ms. Pham.
Hey, Miguel, thank you very much for that introduction. Hey, good morning, good afternoon to everyone out there. Thank you all very much for taking the time today to join us to celebrate this Hispanic Heritage Month. Many of you know that Hispanic Americans have been a part of our Navy, really since the Civil War, right? When David Glasgow Farragut chose the Union Navy over his native state of Tennessee, that aligned with the Confederacy. So I will tell you, we have many courageous and patriotic Hispanic Americans in our ranks today. In a Navy of over 350,000 sailors. Right now, there are over 600 or 65,000 actually that identify as Hispanic, and that's really our third largest ethnicity in the United States Navy. And then really kind of across the Navsea enterprise, just an untold number of Navsea civilians, really kind of working to design, build, and maintain our fleet, and and keep it combat relevant for our sailors and Marines. So as we celebrate this this month, I want to kind of big shout out to our Hispanic shipmates, our Hispanic sailors out there, the civilian personnel and contractors, kind of all pulling and working with the Navsea family. Our nation is built on immigrants, right? And our ancestors came from many different areas and for many different reasons. And my background, from Italy, a little bit from Ireland, and Galenas is from Lithuania, right? So we all have a story, we all have a background and a history, and so as a nation, I really do believe that we continue to lead the world in so many areas, principally because of the diversity, okay, and the different backgrounds and the experiences that we bring to the fight every day, and and across Navsea, what that really results in is really kind of solving some of the hardest problems that our Navy has, and really innovating, and driving toward new solutions. Because I really, we really are kind of the driving force around the world, and and really we do provide that military strength, that background, for many of our countries, many of our foreign, partners around the world. The United States, it's an audacious melting pot, quite frankly. Okay, and what we have today in this country, in the United States, is really because I believe, really do have the best and the brightest folks, and we have that because we have the diversity. And I'm very honored and privileged to spend a few minutes with this team here this morning and celebrate our Hispanic Heritage Month. So thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to be here today and to say, spend just a few minutes and say a few words here to kick this thing off. And with that, I will turn it over to Yao, our Executive Director. Yao.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. I also would like to thank all of you for being here and taking the time to celebrate the heritage of our Navsea Hispanic co-workers, friends, and family. Doing this reminded me, I need to send a note to my brother-in-law. I have a Hispanic brother-in-law, and I forgot all about this, so thank you for reminding me. I will send him a text, and I think it will surprise him that I do recognize him. And so I do hope that we can continue to celebrate our diversity and use it to make our workforce stronger, wiser, and more cohesive. As the Admiral said, we are a nation of immigrants, and as Navsea personnel, civilian, military, contractors alike, we all strive to support our sailors and Marines by expanding the world fighting advantage we currently hold. These celebrations help to bring us together to celebrate our shipmates. Diversity events enhance our understanding of different cultures so that we can better understand one another and ultimately see that we have more similarities than differences. And so we want to take this time to acknowledge the long, rich, and strong history of Hispanic Americans. And we want to highlight what they're doing here and now. The history is vast and filled with great accomplishments, but greatness is also informs their present and futures. So coming up, we have amazing videos to show you some of the sailors we have working on our ship now and the great things they're doing to keep our fleet in peak conditions. Celebrating the past, present, and future with their continued actions and support. Have a good day.
Thank you, Ms. Fan. Now we will show a video. Thank you, Admiral Glenis, as well.
Hello, my name is Edvin Hernandez. I'm a public affairs specialist at Naval Surface Warfare Center, Carteret Division. What pride means to me is being proud of where you come from. I come from two parents who immigrated to this country, one from Guatemala and one from Peru. My mother immigrated to this country from Peru at 16 years old, not knowing a single word of the English language. She fought hard to learn the language and teach her kids the language. Speaking Spanish at home was first nature. It's the first language I learned. And going to school in America was very difficult. I was in English for Spanish speakers all throughout elementary school and middle school. But I'm very proud that I've come a long way, that I speak now with minimal accent. I think to a lot of people, the American dream means several different things. For my family, it meant putting your kids first and providing them a better future. And that's exactly what my mother did. My mother worked at times 2 or 3 jobs to provide a better future for my sister and I. And we both managed to go to college. And that's something that I see through my mother's eyes is a sense of pride, seeing that her kids achieved something that she wasn't totally able to do. I feel very proud of my mother for everything that she did, for all the work that she went through to put her kids in a spot that they could create a better future for themselves. I'm proud of the music that I hear, the cumbia, the salsa, all those different types of genres of music that come from so many different Spanish-speaking countries. It really feels like home, whether it's cleaning the house or you're out in la discoteca, which is the club, and dancing and having a good time. It really brings a sense of pride of where you come from and where others come from, and having that unity, a shared communion of the culture that you have. Though it might be different, the language binds you together, and I'm proud of having that and being able to share that with other people. So I'm proud to be Hispanic. I'm proud to have realized the American dream for my mother and for myself and my siblings and family. And I'm proud to work for a division that recognizes the importance of minorities in the workforce.
Today I'm going to talk about ambición, which is ambition, but I need to start from the beginning of my life. My parents immigrated to Los Angeles, California from Sinaloa, Mexico. As a non-English speaking immigrant from Mexico with no money, the only place you can live in Los Angeles is in the low-income, crime-infested areas of South Los Angeles. Now, my parents struggled during this time, and we grew up poor, but I did not know we were poor because everyone else around us was also poor too. My parents were trying very hard to keep me off the streets by making me join these extracurricular activities and going to work with my father. I remember hating it at the time when my parents would make me go to work and play these sports, but they would always tell me, si no haces nada por ti mismo, nadie más lo hará. And what that basically means is that if you don't do anything for yourself, no one else will. So I made the decision at that time, around 16, 17 years old, to go to college. I got accepted to Cal Poly Pomona, and but I had to pretty much pay my own way through school, through multiple jobs. I would take the bus, and most of my college was paid through credit cards. At the end, my ambition helped me graduate from Cal Poly Pomona with a master's degree in electrical engineering. And I was actually the first person in my entire family to go to college. I got lucky to discover Navsea Corona, where I ended up getting a job as a communications engineer, where I was able to design, build, and deliver telecommunication systems to ranges. As a father of 2 daughters, my wife and I do not want our children to struggle with poverty or struggle with society like we both did. We try very hard to instill the discipline of ambition, work ethic, discipline, responsibility, and empathy so that we could build a solid foundation for them so that they could stand on our shoulders to have a better life and better education.
My mom, my 2 brothers, my sister, and I are first and second generation United States citizens. My mom's parents and my dad immigrated from Mexico, and my mom is a US citizen born in El Paso, Texas. My parents made sacrifices to make sure we were taken care of and received a good education. My mom would drive us 40 minutes away from our house to a different school just because she felt the schools in our neighborhood wouldn't meet our needs. My dad worked long hours picking fruits in the fields, trash collecting, and other jobs. Later, he was able to work a normal shift at a hospital. He worked his way up from a janitor to the engineering and maintenance department. As a family, we would take trips in the car to visit extended family in Texas and Mexico. All my first friends growing up were my brothers and sister, my cousins, who we visited or who lived close by and played at our house or gatherings at parks. We would take yearly trips to Yosemite. I have great memories of these trips, and I'm very fortunate to look back at those times with family. Familia is my word as it instills thoughts such as trust, character, and relationships. I take those thoughts and things that I have learned from my parents and apply them to my work familia: relationships, partnerships, collaboration, integrity, accountability, initiative, diversity, and trust. My wife and I hope that we are instilling these traits in our kids so they can achieve their dreams and aspirations.
Hi, I'm Leslie Urbina, and today I am presenting the word luchar, to strive. I am a daughter of immigrants. My dad is Salvadorian and my mom is Peruana. Today I'll be honoring my grandparents. My grandma was an engineer in the Amazon in the late 60s. And then my grandfather, being free-spirited as he is, was traveling throughout Peru and ended up in the Amazons. So you know how it goes. They fell in love and they got married and they had children and became professionals in the Amazons. But they recognized that, Peru wasn't right for them and their family. So they decided to move, and they moved to Hollywood in the late 80s. And I find that really scary, them being in their 40s and relearning a whole language and culture and food and music. My grandfather had multiple businesses. My grandmother had returned back to school and became a preschool teacher. What they have taught my tíos, mi tías, and my mom is that to always strive and to work hard. That's why I learned how to strive. And I carry this same mentality to my current work I have today.
Okay, let me get the captain's video on. I think I cut his video off.
All right, thank you, Ashley. What a great video and inspirational story. It's truly wonderful. And thank you, Admiral, Ms. Fan, and to all on the line for participating in the celebration of Hispanic culture. And a special thank you to the coordinators who worked so hard to put this special event together. I'm honored to introduce today's keynote speaker, Corona's own Deputy Technical Director, Mr. Elvis Acosta. As a Senior Scientific Technical Manager, he oversees the technical direction of the research and development programs conducted to support surface ship weapon and combat systems, sensor integration, and weapons platform integration, live virtual constructive fleet training, readiness assessment, and metrology engineering. With his selection as Deputy Technical Director, Acosta is the first Hispanic to serve NSWC Corona in this capacity. Mr. Acosta began his career at NSWC Corona in 2001 after graduating from Loyola Marymount University with a BS in mechanical engineering. The first 10 years of his career were spent learning about combat and weapon systems, analysis and assessment, and traveling to support naval testing across the United States and at sea. In 2009, he went on to get his MS in systems engineering from the Naval Postgraduate School. Shortly thereafter, in 2011, he was selected as the Aegis Integrated Air and Missile Defense Branch Head. Then 2 years later, he was selected as the Aegis Enterprise Assessment Division Head. And 3 years later, he was selected to Performance Assessment Department Head. And ultimately, in 2021, he was selected as a Command Deputy Technical Director. Over to you, Mr. Acosta.
Okay, thank you very much, Captain Henry Bay. I really appreciate that introduction. Buenos días, amigos, amigas, amigues, y compañeros del trabajo. Greetings, friends and coworkers. It is amazing to be with you today. I'm honored and humbled to be a part of this event. My esperanza or hope for today is that during today's event, you will be inspired by what you hear in the videos put together by our colleagues, reminded of what makes Hispanic heritage so profound in what you see in the Loteria cards, and you'll be informed a bit and maybe even filled with a newfound appreciation in what you hear from the speakers. Because you've joined this event, there's an assumption that you are interested in understanding and learning, or just being reminded of some of the elements tied to Hispanic heritage. Since the 2020 census data is not available, we know that in 2019, about 19% of the population in the United States, just over 60 million people, are from Hispanic descent. As such, there's a huge likelihood you work with someone, know someone, or are someone that considers themselves Hispanic, Latino, Latina, Latinx, or Latinx. I understand that there are sensitivities, opinions, judgments, views associated with these terms. So I just want to offer this up for consideration. Don't let an opportunity to celebrate those who come before us, those who are great examples for us today, prevent us from coming together because of the vocabulary. I'm not saying the conversation or topic isn't important. I'm just asking that we allow ourselves to come together to start a dialogue. Tengo esta esperanza. I have this hope that in 2021, we can abide by the spirit of what this observance was originally intended to accomplish, that we can come together and be open to all the amazing things that our diverse cultures are. Let this be a moment of inclusiveness, for too much has already physically divided us over this past year and a half. This observance is meant to be a period of reflection, for recognition, for education, for celebration, and for support, and to appreciate how we are part of the American tapestry. As President Biden said just last week, there is no separating out Hispanic heritage from American heritage. So however you identify, I welcome you, and I sincerely appreciate you being here. Así que todos están bienvenidos. Everyone is truly welcome here. I'll set the expectation now. There's no way I'll be able to do justice to the profound, complex, and beautiful elements of this culture, which include food and dance, art, spirituality, faith, and music in the brief time that I am with you. But my goal is not to even try to do all these things. No, my goal is more to be like an amuse-bouche for Hispanic heritage. If you're not familiar with this French term, as I was, until I started watching Top Chef, amuse-bouche literally translates to, it amuses the mouth. And it's a single bite of food at the beginning of a meal, which intends to provoke and heighten your senses, lay a small foundation, and build anticipation for things to come in later courses. My hope for you is that you'll treat today's event as a brief introduction or rekindling into Hispanic heritage, and continue to explore more, to learn more, do more, feel more, engage more, and experience more. This year's Hispanic Heritage Month theme is Esperanza, a celebration of Hispanic heritage and hope, which I think is amazingly spot on. There's no doubt that the persistence of hope in our culture manifests itself in so many ways. Before I get into it though, I think I'd like to add one minor adjustment. I'd like to add a footnote to Esperanza. As you know, a footnote is an ancillary piece of information printed at the bottom of the page, which helps expand on the word, thought, or sentence itself and provide more context or information. The footnote I would include with Esperanza is con ganas, which is one of those Spanish phrases that has several meanings, but I think is still poorly translated because there's so much that comes from the connotation of that Spanish phrase. But at the core, con ganas translates to with passion, desire, energy, motivation, and even a desire to succeed. I want to make it glaringly obvious that though our culture is inherently rooted in esperanza, we do not simply wait idly by for our circumstances to change. We are a culture of action, passion, and optimism. We are not oblivious to the challenges before us and around us. We are well aware of them. We just aren't daunted by them because deep within us, we have this belief, a hope, an esperanza, that through our actions, our passion, our hard work, y con ganas, we can overcome and persevere. And as the co-founder of the United Farm Workers Association, Dolores Clara Fernandez Huerta declared to us while Cesar Chavez was on his 25-day water-only fast, sí se puede. Yes, it can be done. As individuals, we have all had our own challenges in life. Some of us have had to deal with financial stress or debt, underpaying jobs, or even loss of employment. Some of us have had health problems, drug problems, Some of us have had to deal with unexpected loss of loved ones. Some of us have mental health problems, marital problems, relationship problems, and some all of the above. Yet for this past year and a half, we've had to deal with all of those aforementioned matters and COVID. None of us were truly prepared for the absolute chaos and disorder of COVID. We're still trying to fully comprehend how it affected us in the short term, and we'll find out about the lasting effects in the years to come. But there's no doubt that our lives and all of our plans and intentions for 2020 were erased. So when we do what this culture does so well, we must continue to persevere. We must understand that we are not going to let the circumstances of today preclude us from the opportunities of tomorrow, and we must do it together. We have to do it because we've done it before. This is not new for us. It's old hat. You see, we don't simply work harder. We don't simply endure. We don't simply persevere because we can. We do so because deep in our heart of hearts, we have this belief that in doing all these things, our circumstances will get better. Our children will do better, and our family will be better off for it. And no nos queda otra, because giving up is just not an option. We're just not going to pack it in and give up if we stumble or fall, or if we get blindsided. It's just not an option. Hope is what drives us. Hope is that light shining off in the distance when we are enshrouded by darkness. Hope is what keeps us working when others would have stopped. Hope is what helps us accomplish greatness, even when the times are tremendously adverse. It is something that you can grasp onto, even in a global pandemic. This pandemic will not define us. On the contrary, the pandemic will be but a footnote when they talk about our legacy. This pandemic has caused us all to rethink so many parts of our lives, our priorities, our motivation, and of course, our family. And by this point, I have no doubt you have felt frustration, anger, anxiety, concern, loss, and mourning. But it's not in our nature to simply go with the flow and let our journey be dictated. We need to guide it, to support it, to push it forward through actions, and make sure our hopeful future comes to fruition. I think civil rights leader Cesar Chavez stated it best when he said, "We draw our strength from the very despair in which we have been forced to live. We shall endure." And I know I have always felt this resiliency, which I can only attribute to my upbringing and culture, a blurring recognition of my difficult circumstances for sure. Whether the challenges were tied to socioeconomic, financial, or environmental circumstances, I always felt I had a firm understanding of my situation. Don't get me wrong, I felt challenged, saddened at times, jealous and bitter, fearful and overwhelmed to the point of doubting myself and feeling major imposter syndrome. But eventually, deep within me, I also felt a sense of positivity, a belief that I needed to keep going, an uncanny sense of hope. I also realized my story is not unique. So many of these circumstances and much, much worse are shared broadly with those of you participating on this event here today, and no doubt across our entire culture. But what I want to clarify is something I used to confuse pretty frequently about my own life and upbringing. I don't believe the challenges we face in our lives is what makes us who we are. I believe the challenges we experience give us an opportunity to truly demonstrate who we are. With that said, I'd like to share a short experience from one summer in my childhood. So let's journey back really quickly to 1985. Microsoft Windows 1.0 had just been released. Granted, that didn't matter. I wouldn't get my first computer for another 12 years, but it was the summer and I was 7 years old. My mom had abruptly decided that we were going to visit our family in Colombia that summer. I'd later come to find out that one of my older cousins, Julio, had been robbed and killed while walking home after one day from work. And my aunt, his mother, was distraught and really unsure about how to adapt, given that Julio was taking care of both of them. So the family needed to come together to figure out the living situation. Not knowing the sad reality of why we were traveling, I was super excited, mind you. 99.9% of my family all resided in Colombia, and I didn't know any of them. So knowing I was going to get a chance to play with cousins, meet aunts and uncles, my grandmother and my great-grandmother was almost too much to take in all at once. There was only one challenge. My Spanish was horrible. I can say this with relative confidence because up to that point, when my mom would call back to Colombia for holidays or other special occasions, she would put me on the phone and tell me to talk to your tia or aunt. And then after hola tia, ¿cómo está? Which is, hi tia, how are you? I quickly turned to my mom and would say, ¿Cómo se dice? Which translates to, how do you say? And after about 3 or 4 ¿Cómo se dices? At that point, my mom would take pity on me and take the phone back. So that was the conundrum. I was getting ready to meet my family from Colombia and I was going to struggle with being able to communicate with them. So I just mentioned how talking Spanish was a bit of a challenge, but then there's that other element on communication. And I'm going to take a quick pause about the Colombia story. Growing up, whenever I'd get sick, cold or flu, my mom would put on an ointment on my chest, Viva Peru. I never questioned it, never even read the bottle. And one day in college, I got the flu, came home to sleep the weekend away. My mom told me, put on the Vicks. Póngase el Vicks. I was so confused. I said, ¿Que me ponga qué? What do you want me to put on? And she handed me a bottle of Vicks Vapor Rub. That's when it all clicked. All my life, I had thought I was putting on this special ointment and it was Vicks Vapor Rub. Mind blown. Okay, now I'm going to hand you the red pill so you can see how deep the rabbit hole truly goes with Vicks. Earlier this month, I dropped a 45-pound weight on my big toe and fractured it at the gym. I don't recommend this as a way of getting out of working out. It hurt like crazy, and it only grew more painful and uglier as the days progressed. Battered, bruised, bloody. It had that constant hot sensation going through because it was so swollen. The fracture blister had formed already on the top. It was filled with a mix of liquid and blood and felt tight. I felt it would burst when I stood up as the blood would rush down. And of course, the nail was purple and you could see that it was eventually going to fall off. I also realized it's lunchtime, so I won't talk about the pus. But it doesn't bother me one bit anymore. Now, let me tell you why. The first time I showed it to my mom a few days into the injury, the first words out of her mouth, Póngale Vicks, put on Vicks, to which I immediately laughed. And then as soon as she left, I went and got the bottle and quickly lathered up my whole toe. No joke. So now you know a bit more about why I was freaking about going to Colombia. My mom, who didn't speak fast at all, still managed to confound me. So how was I going to make it in Colombia? My mom was raised in a small city known as Cartago. It's a beautiful region of Colombia, centrally located between the two larger cities of Medellin and Cali. In Cartago, I had several cousins, but it would be 3 cousins who I'd come to spend most of my summer with, Mati, Monica, and Cesar. My great-grandmother's house was there, as it was centrally located to several of my aunts and uncles. And we'd spend the summer riding bikes and running between households. To be honest, there was one bike. It was my older cousin, John Heidel's bike. He would come by in the evening after he was done from work and would spend what seemed like hours driving around the kids on the handlebars. Too much fun. Given the proximity to so much family, we would spend our days going between homes, picking up groceries, running basic errands, and all of it seemed way more fun than it did here in the States. Seeing Colombia through my family's eyes made me truly appreciate the music, the food, the spirituality, and the beauty of how it all came together. Pretty quickly into the trip, I picked up on 2 customs that truly helped me connect with my family a bit more. First custom was on arrival to any home, whether aunt, uncle, cousin, grandmother, great-grandmother. When you arrived, you went in to greet everybody. And by greet, I mean you gave your salutation, buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. And then you went around and you kissed everyone on the cheek. Whether you were there to drop off some eggs or fresh baked bread, the greeting was mandatory. Reflecting now, I can see that these gestures were so much more than a simple custom. They allowed family to see each other and be with one another for just a few moments, regardless of the circumstance. I think about how this past year not being able to hug or embrace those in our life as we would have liked because we were not in the same bubble has made us change our customs, and how we must remember to bring back those customs that make us who we are when it's safe to do so. But I digress. Coming from Los Angeles, where my extended family interactions only really consisted of seeing my great aunt and great uncle on occasion, this new custom was awesome. Meeting so many people in my family was so cool, and the fact that we visited several households a day made it all the more memorable. The fact that my cousins Mati, Monica, and Cesar did it so effortlessly, I just followed suit, and my nervousness and awkwardness really melted away pretty quickly. The second custom was both so unexpected, and yet it was so natural once it happened. This custom would happen on leaving the home of my great-grandmother. As we would depart from the house, the departing person or groups of persons would ask for a bendición, which literally translates to a blessing. But in retrospect, I really find it to be so much more. Here's what we would do. As we were departing, the five of us, say, Mati, Monica, Cesar, my sister Kathy, and me, would run up to my great-grandmother as we used her home as our hub and simply say, bendición, and we would all stand in front of her with our heads dipped down a bit. She would put her hand on our head one at a time and say a small prayer for us to be safe, be guided, be protected, and return safe. I can tell you as a kid, this small gesture made me feel so loved and special. The fact that my elderly grandmother would take the time to do this for each kid was very endearing. I'm sure the first couple of times I did it, I was probably super awkward about it. It was not common practice to me. But I know for a fact towards the end of the summer, when I'd wake up early and want to meet my cousins at their house, I wouldn't hesitate to run up to my great-grandmother, dip my head and say, bendición. My trip to Colombia changed me in so many ways. It truly helped me to understand that family is the most important thing that we have and that time together is precious. About 10 years after when we left Colombia, my cousin John Heidel went to Panama to seek out work. He had heard that there was a ton of new housing developments requiring construction, and the pay was pretty good. Unfortunately, he would pass away in a tragic accident only a few months into the job. I can't help but be a bit caught up in the emotions and heartbreak tied to loss of life when it comes to our loved ones, and how when blindsided, we can become truly overcome by lost opportunities. I've no data on this matter, but if you had asked me, I could see that the two examples I just provided about my own experience be described as hope with action, meaning taking the time to be present and enjoy time with family when the opportunity presents itself truly lends itself to not having regrets tied to missed opportunities. Additionally, taking the time to place a blessing on your family to wish them safe passage and return is clearly doing everything you can, including rolling in your spirituality and faith. And it might be the only action you can take, especially when you're 90 years old. So whether your comfort level with our culture has you express it outwardly every day, or whether you share it only when you're with family and friends, just know whatever makes you feel culturally connected is what is right for you. Whether it is in listening to some trios, dancing to some salsa, or having some homemade maduros, there is no wrong way to connect with or live your heritage. And if you come from outside of Hispanic heritage, there are many ways for you to enjoy and celebrate that culture as well. I'm going to jump forward to June 2001, 15 years after my visit to Colombia. I'd accept an offer to work at the Naval Surface Warfare Center Corrode Division. After a few months on the job, I'd be sent TDY for the first time. I remember being so excited to see where Corona would send me, given our global footprint that we supported with our mission. Would they send me to Roosevelt Roads in Puerto Rico that I heard so much about, or maybe supporting one of the FMS ships in Hawaii going through Sea Squat? As it turns out, my first and next 15 trips would be to Morristown, New Jersey. If you know, you know. And now in retrospect, I wouldn't have changed a thing about it. My mother, of course, would be the one who would drop me off at the airport for the very first time. We parked the car when we got to the airport. And after she finished telling me how proud she was of me and all the hard work, after all the years at Loyola, getting my engineering degree, I hugged and kissed her. I looked at her and said, bendición. And as if she had been doing it all our lives, she knew exactly what to do and say. My wife and I still do this practice with my mother today when our journeys take us somewhere a bit further. I'll tell you, it still warms my heart and makes me feel safer. I'd like to offer up this quote from Walt Whitman, and though he's not Hispanic, I checked, he does remind me of my Tío Baldomero, if that counts for anything. That you are here, that life exists, and identity. That the powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. And truth be told, the Navy needs us all to contribute a verse or two, now, maybe more than ever. Entonces, familia Navsea, and so Navsea family, I fully expect for you to continue to do what you do best, to use your capabilities, talents, skills, knowledge, and to work across the enterprise. I will ask you to help expand the advantage by leveraging our diversity, pero con ganas. We can't allow diversity to be a footnote. We need it to be the headline. That way, we can rally around it and cultivate it, make it into the greatest strength we have in our arsenal. For this is something our adversaries could never emulate or replicate. It's been an absolute pleasure to be with you today, share some of me with all of you. Muchas gracias, thank you very much. And as my mother likes to tell me when I have something important to tackle, siempre para adelante, always forward.
Wow, that was phenomenal. So I'm not Hispanic, but I was resonating with so many things, and my smile was literally this big in the background the entire time. The big that must have been like a grandma thing and all over. And really even talking about, losing family members so young, how that impacts you, you never realize. So thank you so much for sharing those stories. And even a funny thing, you said you would say so much Spanish during this. And I think it needs to be heard because like Ms. Fan said, we are a nation of immigrants. And by being a nation of immigrants, I always say that we have something that no other country has in America. And we have people here from all over the world. And so thank you for that. And I want to get into some questions because the chat, I don't know if you can see the chat. I know you're focused on delivery, but everybody loves you.
That's very nice. Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, of course. So what advice would you give to young Hispanic engineers and scientists as they're growing their careers at Navsea? Because, you've had an untraditional, journey. So what would you say to some of the younger workforce?
The most useful advice that I received early on was branch out as quickly as possible. Meet as many people as you can. I know in my own development at Corona, whether it was peers from different, recent grads that we befriended each other on TDY and we built that camaraderie, to really experienced engineers, to managers. It's important to have different lifelines that you can reach out to because work is complex, work is stressful, and you need to have these touch points with people because work is all about relationships. And without relationships, it makes it all the more daunting.
Yeah, it's kind of like the saying, it's not always about what you know, about who you know, that networking and expanding your knowledge, that's amazing, that's great. And here's another question too. As Hispanics in the Navsea community, what impact do you see us making now and foreseeable in the near future in the long term?
So I think we bring a tremendous amount of skills, fortitude, perseverance, passion. As a holistic enterprise, we are nothing but value added, right? We definitely are a diverse culture. But what we bring to Navsea is unique in terms of being able to help on so many different levels. And I think we are growing in numbers, which is fantastic, but so is the diversity entirely of Navsea, which makes it even better, right? The more people of color we can get into positions of leadership, the more diverse thought we can get across the spectrum.
Thank you. And I was mentioning that to someone else too, needing people in the pipeline to apply and go out for things and not to say, hey, if I may not get that because of XYZ, you have to go out there and look. Even having, Hispanic and, you know, first African-Americans and like high-ranking officials for the DOD and Department of the Navy. It's just like amazing. We're seeing this all across the board.
Agreed.
Yeah. And you said something earlier in your message about the imposter syndrome. And so I know that a lot of people deal and struggle with that. Like, what advice would you give to someone who's dealing with this really heavily? Like, sometimes it's tough to deal with, you know, in the video you heard, sometimes, you know, having to take people's accent off, or like trying to fit a mold. What would you say to someone dealing with that?
So I'll give a little personal piece of advice. I think I dealt with it quite a bit, you know, at different steps along the way. The biggest first, I think, interaction with imposter syndrome was when I went from junior high to high school, and I went from like very average student to honor roll. And I was like, uh-oh, someone made a mistake. They're going to catch on to me. And, you know, I happened to continue that through my educational career at that point. But what I came to find out was those around you who love you the most aren't going to lie to you. And you have to believe what they tell you. We will always have the self-doubt within us, but we can't love those around us if we don't trust them. And if we do love them, then we need to trust them. And so we need to listen to folks who raise us up.
Thank you. And just as this is one more question, and then we have another video with testimonies from across the workforce we want to share. I appreciate you taking the time. What were some of your go-to techniques to focus on work while you've been working from home? And I know we talk about networking and putting yourself out there, but what are some advice that you can give in this, you know, telework environment?
So I love listening to podcasts, TED Talks, and I just happen to have the huge advantage that my wife also works from home, and she's way better at telework than I am. You know, coming from the Navy, and my previous line of work was really working in classified environment. So I did not know working from home for a preponderance of the time was even doable until we actually had to do it. So what I would tell people is you need to talk about it. It's one of those things where you can do a little bit of research, gather some information, but we need to grow through understanding what works and what doesn't, what resonates, whether, you know, you need to have a meeting or a Zoom call or jump on Teams, or a text will work, or a quick phone call will work. But it's all a growing and learning process, and we just need to continue at it.
Thank you. So all right, everybody in the chat, I want you to go and look in the gal and find Mr. Acosta's email and light his inbox up and tell him how amazing he was. I want him to come back to his email inbox and see all these great, amazing things. And look, he didn't tell me to say that, so he's probably going to hate me just for a day, but he'll be okay. So we want to show the next set of videos, and thank you, Mr. Acosta, so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I grew up, both my parents were in the Air Force, and my mom her whole family's from Mexico. So she was born in Chicago. My dad was born in Washougal. They met in the Air Force. So I was born in Japan, and I've lived all over the US. And I think that's one of the unique things about the military is just, I used to hate it when I was a kid, just growing up with parents in the Air Force, because I'd move all the time. So it felt like every time I'd make a friend, we're moving away. But I look back on it and I'm grateful for that experience, because I've come into contact with so many different kinds of people, just throughout different walks of life, that I can have a conversation with anyone and find some sort of common ground, it feels like. When our family from Mexico would come over, Spanish was always being spoken in the house. And it's kind of funny, I can't speak Spanish fluently, but every time my relatives come around, like, I can understand exactly what they're talking to me about and stuff. So it's interesting how it comes back. The thing that really stood out to me when my family would come to visit is just you really feel the culture of our Mexican heritage. You really feel just that family, tight-knit, like it's it's all about family. And so just little things like my grandma cooking for everyone and just those kinds of things, and just the conversation and you just feel like a closeness. I got to visit Mexico quite a handful of times when I was a kid. And I just remember, like I said before, about that sense of community and family, feeling that everywhere I went in Mexico, and not just with my family specifically, but every person that I encountered, just so nice and welcoming, and that's pretty cool.
Hi, my name is Christian Lopez. I'm a mechanical engineer here at NSWC Philadelphia Detachment. Several decades ago, my family migrated from Nicaragua to the States due to the chaotic political situation at the time, and to give our family esperanza for a better way of life. Throughout my professional journey, I come to realize that organizations are strengthened by fostering diverse and inclusive workplace environments. This mentality led 3 other Hispanic employees and myself to establish a Latin American Employer Resource Group about a decade ago, with key objectives that included providing the command with support with organizational activities, cultural initiatives, and also performing local community outreach as needed. For many years, Latin ERG members have been providing Roberto Clemente Middle School, located in inner city Philadelphia, with STEM mentoring support through their after-school program, mainly focusing in robotics and seapush underwater vessel competitions. Being able to empower these kids from underrepresented groups to realize their potential and spark interest in STEM career fields, and in the process providing with esperanza for a better future, has been a very rewarding experience for me and for everyone involved. I am very proud to be part of the Navsea and NSWCPD family, and look forward for the continuing expansion of our workforce with diverse and talented individuals. Feliz Mes de la Hispanidad. Gracias.
Growing up, I tended to feel out of place, and people would have preconceptions about me based on my looks or my family. I would hear things like, "Oh, you speak English so well," and it made me want to prove that I wasn't just a statistical minority. However, in college, when I had my son, I was disappointed in myself, and I felt like I was feeding into the expectations of being a typical single Latina mom working 2 jobs, and the possibility of adding college dropout to the list of labels. But I couldn't stand the idea of being just another statistic. I graduated college, and I pursued different opportunities and fought through challenges and change with the hope of always being better. With that same perseverance, I continue to work towards a successful future, especially supporting the Navy. I hope to prove that all of those labels, Hispanic, Latina, female, parent, they make me an asset. I will always do my best to provide excellent customer service, good quality work, a positive attitude, and I always want to encourage positive change for myself, for my son, and for the Navy. One team, one fight.
I've been going through a lot, right? Coming from the Dominican Republic all the way here, 2006, without no English, no nothing, not even family around, because I got a full scholarship in the Dominican Republic to do engineering in New York. Compassion is kind of like my lifestyle since I was little, and coming all the way to the United States. I've been struggling a lot. I'm coming from a very honest but poor family, so for me, when I see somebody going through that, I relate to it. So, and I had people actually that helped me and give me some opportunity and say, "Hey, I'm here with you, no matter what you're going through." Sometimes I just needed some word of encouragement, and it was enough, because I am here today because of them, because they helped me out. You can actually learn compassion, and that comes when you actually let other people to help you, and you understand that you need help. And when you recognize that you need help, and that person that helps you actually care about you, and that you have now that in your possession, you can help others, that's when you're gonna actually have compassion, because you need to see that needs in somebody else and be able to help, be open, and and be kind. If you're trying to depend on yourself, you will never have compassion. You will never see that in somebody else. You think everybody else is like you, and that's a big mistake in this world that we are facing right now.
Wow, what a wonderful set of personnel testimonials, and really an incredible event overall. Esperanza, celebrating hope, the Hispanic culture, and the importance of diverse perspectives. And one of the things that I learned as we talk about the importance of diversity is also how similarities cross cultures. I resonated with Elvis's discussion of family and welcoming everybody and hugging when you come in and when you walk out, being raised in a small town in Kansas. So diverse perspectives, yet similarities across cultures is so very, very important. Hey, I want to thank Miguel Carrillo as an incredible Warfare Center, Navsea, and Navalex team for putting this fabulous event together. I also want to thank you for participating and all of the wonderful feedback that you gave in the chat and that you're going to do in sending emails to both Elvis and Miguel, as Ashley has shared. I also want to thank Elvis for your inspiring remarks. I got tears in my eyes, and I know many others did throughout your remarks today. I also want, as we close this event today, is the last thing that you haven't been able to see yet are the beautiful Lotera artwork and cards that are going to be shown in a slide show immediately following this. So please stay on as we close today. And again, thank you for a fabulous event.
All right, I hope you all have enjoyed the program. Remember, like I said, I want to see those emails. I want to hear complaints from Mr. Acosta and Miguel. So I hope you all have a wonderful and amazing time. Have some salsa, go out dancing, eat some chips, all the stuff. Eat all of it. Have fun and have a good night.